Imagine for a moment that you're walking through the seemingly empty corridors of Hogwarts in the wee hours of the morning. The silence is broken only by the distant echo of your footsteps on the ancient stones. Suddenly, you hear a whisper coming from behind a solid wall. What you've just witnessed may be one of the most fascinating discoveries in the wizarding world, the secret passages of Hogwarts. Today, we'll unravel all the mysteries behind these hidden routes that connect the most famous castle in fantasy literature, from tunnels forgotten by time to passages that saved lives during the darkest moments of wizarding history. But before we dive into this journey through Hogwarts' best-kept secrets, help me reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. If you're enjoying this content, hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments, tell me which city you're watching from. I love hearing where our explorers of the magical world hail from. To truly understand Hogwarts' secret passages, we must go back to the beginning over 1,000 years ago, when 4 of history's most powerful wizards decided to create a school of magic. Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin didn't just build a castle. They created a living, breathing entity capable of adapting and evolving to the needs of its inhabitants. Hogwarts Castle was built during a turbulent time when wizards faced constant persecution from muggles. The Middle Ages were a time when the line between magic and heresy was very thin, and the founders knew their school would need more than high walls to protect its students. Thus, the first generation of secret passages was born, not as pranks, but as vital escape routes that could save lives in times of danger. Helga Hufflepuff, with her extraordinary talent for earth and plant-related spells, was responsible for creating most of the underground passages. She understood that the rocky ground upon which Hogwarts stood could be magically shaped, creating a network of tunnels that would extend far beyond the visible boundaries of the castle. Her magical excavations not only created physical space, but also infused the tunnels themselves with lasting protection against collapse, excessive moisture, and the passage of time. Rowena Ravenclaw contributed her genius to concealment and illusion spells. She developed mechanisms that allowed solid walls to open with specific keywords, staircases to appear where there had previously been only a plain wall, and portraits to serve as disguised portals. Her deep knowledge of spatial magic allowed passages to exist in dimensions slightly different from normal space, explaining how tunnels seemingly impossible to fit within the castle's foundations could stretch for miles. Godric Gryffindor, ever the pragmatic warrior, focused on the defensive applications of these passages. He created magical alarm systems that would alert the castle's defenders if intruders attempted to use the passages to invade, and he developed subtle traps that could be activated in times of war. Most importantly, he established the magical rules that would determine who could and could not discover and use certain passages, rules that would remain in effect for over 1,000 years. Salazar Slytherin, for his part, created the most elaborate and dangerous passages. His Chamber of Secrets was just the most famous example of his occult architectural work. He designed passages that responded not only to keywords, but also to the very intentions of those attempting to use them, creating a security system that was nearly impossible to circumvent. His contributions included tunnels that could automatically reconfigure themselves, changing their destinations or even sealing themselves permanently if they detected a threat. Over the centuries, each Hogwarts headmaster added their own modifications to the network of secret passages. Armando Dippet, who led the school for decades, created several additional emergency routes during his tenure, particularly after the Chamber of Secrets was first opened in 1943. Albus Dumbledore, perhaps the most innovative headmaster in the school's history, not only discovered passages that had been lost for centuries, but also created new routes that incorporated extremely advanced magic. During the 1970s, 4 extraordinary students completely revolutionized knowledge about Hogwarts' secret passages. James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew, known by the nicknames Prongs, Padfoot, Moony, and Wormtail, undertook the most ambitious project ever attempted by students at the school, systematically mapping every secret passage, every hidden shortcut, every alternate route within the castle. The project took years to complete and required a unique combination of talents. James Potter, with his natural aptitude for complex spells, developed the tracking enchantments that would allow the future Marauder's map to pinpoint the exact location of every person within the castle. Sirius Black, a natural rebel and expert at bending the rules, contributed his in-depth knowledge of the more obscure aspects of protective magic. Remus Lupin, the future defense against the dark arts professor, brought a theoretical understanding that perfectly complemented his friend's practical skills. Even Peter Pettigrew, often underestimated, demonstrated a surprising ability for preservation and duplication spells that would ensure the map's longevity. The result of their efforts was much more than a simple map. It was a masterpiece of magical cartography that revealed secrets some professors were unaware of. The Marauder's map not only showed the 7 main passages connecting Hogwarts to Hogsmeade, but also revealed dozens of smaller shortcuts, secret hiding places, and forgotten rooms scattered throughout the castle. The first and most famous of these main passages was accessed through the statue of the One-Eyed Witch, located on the 3rd floor of the castle. To activate it, one had to touch the statue's hump with a wand and clearly pronounce Descendium. The statue then opened, revealing a stone slide that led to an underground tunnel. This tunnel, which stretched for approximately a mile, wound through the rocky foundations of the castle before emerging in the basement of Honeydukes in Hogsmeade. The One-Eyed Witch's passageway was particularly ingenious in its construction. The walls were smooth as glass, the result of centuries of use by students sliding down the initial slide, but also treated with protective spells that prevented collapse. A magical ventilation system ensured fresh air throughout the entire route, while small spheres of light automatically turned on when they detected movement, creating an illuminated path that extended only a few meters in front of the traveler, thus preserving the journey's element of mystery and magic. The second main passage led directly to the Hog's Head, the less reputable tavern in Hogsmeade, owned by Aberforth Dumbledore. This route was accessed through Ariana Dumbledore's portrait, and its history was intimately tied to the traumatic events that shaped the Dumbledore family decades earlier. The passage was not just a means of transportation, but a living memorial to Albus Dumbledore's lost sister, and it responded uniquely to those who approached it with pure intentions. Unlike the other passages, which were purely physical constructs, the tunnel behind Ariana's portrait existed partially in a different magical space. Travelers often reported strange experiences while passing through. Echoes of voices from the past, glimpses of memories not their own, and an overwhelmingly powerful sense of protection and love. Dumbledore had infused this particular passage with his own emotional magic, making it not only a means of physical escape, but also a spiritual refuge for those in need. The third passage, behind an ancient stained mirror on the silent 4th floor of Hogwarts, lay a passage few dared mention aloud. However, the mystery surrounding it remains alive. It was known that it led to Hogsmeade, but the exact exit point was never revealed, leaving room for countless theories. Some believed it ended in an abandoned basement, forgotten even by the villagers. Others argued that it led to an ancient underground cellar, once used for discreet meetings by wizards who didn't want to be seen. There were even those who claimed that the passage could change direction depending on the intention of whoever traversed it, which would explain why no one could pinpoint its true direction. What is known with some certainty is that the passage was remarkably wide. Sirius Black, in one of his conversations about the castle's secrets, even claimed that the space was large enough for an entire organization to meet within. This raised suspicions that the tunnel had been used for much more than simple student mischief. Was it a former hideout for the Order of the Phoenix in its early years of resistance, or perhaps a meeting place for dark wizards seeking conspiracy away from Dumbledore's watchful eyes? The fact that no one has ever confirmed these hypotheses has only increased the fascination surrounding the passage. The fourth main passage used a completely different mechanism than the others. Located on the 7th floor, it was accessed through the Room of Requirement, that magical room that appeared only when someone had a genuine need. To access the secret passage, one had to walk 3 times in front of the blank wall where the Room of Requirement normally appeared, thinking intensely about the need for a safe route to Hogsmeade. The Room of Requirement would then manifest itself not as a room, but as a long, narrow corridor extending far beyond the castle's apparent physical boundaries. This corridor was unique among secret passages because it adapted to the specific needs of each user. For someone with claustrophobia, it would become wider and brighter. For someone in a hurry, it would shorten, allowing for a faster journey. For someone injured, it would provide physical support and even basic healing during the traversal. The 5th passage, hidden beneath the gnarled roots of the imposing Whomping Willow on the Hogwarts grounds, lay one of the castle's most notorious secret passages. Originally created by order of Albus Dumbledore, not for student amusement but as protection for Remus Lupin during his student years, the passage connected Hogwarts directly to the Shrieking Shack in Hogsmeade. The entrance was treacherous. Only those who knew the trick to immobilize the violent Willow could access the hidden tunnel beneath its trunk. For the unwary, a careless approach was enough for the branches to deliver brutal blows, making the secret even more protected. Once the entrance was secured, the tunnel revealed itself to be narrow and uneven, dug deep into the ground, with thick roots crossing the path and the air thick with damp and silence. The sensation was claustrophobic, as if the earthen walls themselves were watching every step. Although not designed for comfort, the route served its purpose well. It led Lupin safely to the place where he could transform into a werewolf, without endangering his classmates. The aura of mystery of this corridor grew over time, earning it the status of one of Hogwarts' darkest and most enigmatic secrets. During the Battle of Hogwarts, decades later, the hidden tunnel beneath the Whomping Willow once again held crucial importance, serving as an escape route and secret entrance for wizards during one of the darkest moments of the war. Its existence, marked by pain and danger, proved that the passages of Hogwarts were never mere shortcuts. They carried within them stories of sacrifice, courage, and survival. The Willow, imposing in the school grounds, continued to silently guard the access to one of the most iconic underground corridors in wizarding history. The 6th passage was one of the oldest, dating back to the time of the founders themselves. Accessed through a complex sequence of steps on a specific moving staircase, it required perfect timing and precise knowledge of the magical staircase's movement patterns. The passage itself was a masterpiece of medieval magical engineering, its walls bearing ancient runes that glowed softly, providing illumination and protection. This ancient passageway terminated in a natural cavern nestled in the mountains near Hogsmeade, offering access not only to the village, but also to the surrounding region. It was particularly prized by those wishing to explore the wilderness surrounding the school, and had served as a crucial escape route during several historical sieges of Hogwarts. The 7th and final main passage remained a mystery to all but the Marauders themselves, and later the Weasley twins, who inherited their knowledge. Its location was never revealed on the Marauders' map, indicated only by a small cryptic symbol that changed location with each view of the map. This passage was known as the Route of Last Resort, an emergency exit so well hidden and guarded that only in truly desperate circumstances should anyone attempt to find it. It was speculated that this seventh passage led not to Hogsmeade, but to someplace much more distant, perhaps London or even to other magical lands. The Marauders were extremely careful to keep this secret, recognizing that an escape route of such scope could be extremely dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands. Beyond these 7 main passages, the Marauders' map revealed dozens of smaller routes and shortcuts that formed a veritable magical hive within the castle. There were passages that connected different floors without using the main staircases, tunnels that allowed quick movement between distant towers, and even some routes that seemed to completely defy the laws of physics, allowing someone to enter a room on the 1st floor and emerge in a room on the 6th floor that should have been located in a completely different tower. One of these smaller passages was particularly beloved by students, a narrow tunnel connecting the library to the kitchen. This route had originally been discovered by a hungry Hufflepuff student centuries ago, who had noticed that certain books in the library gave off fragrances that seemed to correspond with the dishes being prepared on the lower floors. Further research revealed a magical ventilation system that not only kept the air fresh in the library, but also carried aromas from the kitchens below. The student realized that if he could trace the source of these aromas, he might find a more direct route to late-night snacks. After weeks of careful exploration, he discovered a loose stone behind one of the larger bookshelves. When pressed in a specific pattern, the stone would slide aside, revealing a narrow tunnel that descended several floors before leveling off into a horizontal passage that emerged behind one of the house elves' workstations in the kitchen. This particular passage became legendary among starving students, but it also served a more serious purpose during times of siege or danger. It provided a safe way for house elves to deliver food to people hiding throughout the castle, and during the Battle of Hogwarts, it proved invaluable for moving supplies and injured people to safety. Another fascinating aspect of Hogwarts' secret passages was their relationship to the moving portraits and paintings throughout the castle. Many portraits served as more than just decoration. They were active participants in the secret network, serving as lookouts, message bearers, and even guardians of hidden entrances. Sir Cadogan, the perpetually confused knight whose portrait hung in various locations throughout the castle, was particularly useful to those who knew how to interact with him properly. His portrait was connected to a network of smaller portraits hidden throughout the secret passages, allowing him to scout ahead and warn travelers of potential obstacles or dangers. His tendency toward dramatic exaggeration actually served a practical purpose. His overly detailed descriptions of the conditions within the passages provided travelers with specific information about what to expect. The fat lady, whose portrait graced the 7th floor wall, was much more than just a painting. As the official guardian of the entrance to the Gryffindor common room, she played a crucial role in the safety and daily lives of the house's students. Only those who pronounced the password correctly were allowed entry, and her watchful gaze, combined with a voice that oscillated between welcoming and stern, ensured that no intruder went unnoticed. Although she was known for her fondness for wine and her somewhat vain personality, her loyalty to Gryffindor was unquestionable, and she took her role with surprising seriousness. For centuries, the Fat Lady witnessed secrets, conversations, and decisive events, always from the other side of the screen she guarded. In times of crisis, her portrait became a veritable shield, denying entry even to students from her own house without the correct password. Her presence served as a constant reminder that at Hogwarts, even the most trivial details, like a painting on a wall, could conceal a vital role in the castle's intricate web of secrets and protections. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, when Lord Voldemort's first rise to power was terrorizing the wizarding world, These secret passages took on new importance. They were no longer merely tools for student mischief, but potential lifelines for those who might need to quickly escape the castle. Dumbledore quietly ordered improvements to several of the passages, adding additional wards, emergency supplies, and even hidden rooms where people could shelter indefinitely if necessary. One such emergency shelter, located approximately halfway along a passage from the 5th floor to Hogsmeade, was equipped with sleeping facilities for up to 50 people, a month's worth of preserved food, a magical communication device that could reach the Ministry of Magic, and a full medical station tended by the portrait of a long-dead but still knowledgeable healer. This attention to emergency preparedness proved prophetic when, years later during Harry Potter's time at school, these same passages would serve crucial roles in both minor adventures and major battles. When Harry first discovered a secret passage during his 3rd year at school, he was participating in a tradition that stretched back to the very foundations of Hogwarts. The passage behind the One-Eyed Witch became Harry's first portal to the wider wizarding world beyond the walls of Hogwarts. His journey through this ancient tunnel represented more than just a trip to Hogsmeade. He was following in the footsteps of thousands of students before him, each of whom had discovered the thrill of exploration and the satisfaction of uncovering hidden knowledge. When Fred and George Weasley gifted Harry with the Marauder's map during his 3rd year, they were passing on more than just a useful tool. They were initiating him into a fellowship of explorers, a tradition of discovery that connected him directly to his father and his father's friends. The map itself was a testament to the power of collaboration, creativity, and the courage to push boundaries. The intricate magic woven into the map was extraordinary even by wizarding standards. It didn't simply show the layout of the passages, it revealed the real-time locations of every person within the castle, including ghosts, portraits, and even magical creatures. The map could distinguish between different people with the same name, track people using Polyjuice Potion, and even detect people in animagus form. This level of detail required a combination of magical techniques never before attempted. The map used a form of sympathetic magic that created connections between it and every person who entered Hogwarts. These connections were so subtle that even experienced wizards like Snape couldn't detect them, yet they were strong enough to provide continuous and accurate tracking information. The map's security features were equally impressive. When activated by an unauthorized user, it would display insulting messages instead of useful information. These messages weren't random. They were specifically tailored to the person attempting to use the map, suggesting that it somehow analyzed the user's personality and responded appropriately. Even more remarkably, the map could detect when someone was trying to force their way through its security measures and would respond by temporarily erasing itself, making it appear as nothing more than a blank piece of parchment. During Harry's 4th year at school, when the Triwizard Tournament brought international attention to Hogwarts, the secret passages took on yet another role. With delegations from Beauxbatons and Durmstrang staying at the castle, there was increased interest in exploring areas normally off-limits to visitors. Several lesser-known passages were quietly sealed or rerouted to prevent international students from accidentally discovering sensitive areas of the castle. However, this increased security also meant that Harry and his friends had to be even more careful when using familiar routes. The passage behind the One-Eyed Witch, in particular, was more closely monitored, and students using it had to time their journeys carefully to avoid detection. During this period, a new discovery was made that would prove crucial in later years. Dobby, the house elf who had become attached to Harry, revealed the existence of a network of passageways connecting all the main working areas of the castle. These passageways were not shown on the Marauder's map because they were not intended for student use, but for the house elves who maintained the castle. This service network was extensive and sophisticated, featuring conveyor belt-like mechanisms that could carry heavy loads, communication tubes that allowed instant messaging between different areas, and even specialized passageways for safely transporting hazardous materials. During the Battle of Hogwarts, this network would prove invaluable for evacuating students and moving supplies, demonstrating that the true extent of Hogwarts' hidden infrastructure was even greater than the Marauders had imagined. As Harry's 5th year began and the wizarding world began to accept the reality of Voldemort's return, Hogwarts' secret passages took on a much darker meaning. Educational Decree Number 23, which gave Dolores Umbridge sweeping powers to monitor student activity, meant that meeting places like the Room of Requirement had to be accessed through secret routes to avoid detection. The formation of Dumbledore's army created a new need for secret movement throughout the castle. Members had to be able to reach the Room of Requirement without being seen by Dolores Umbridge's inquisitorial squad or her network of student informants. This required a new level of sophistication in the use of secret passages. Rather than relying on the main passages leading to Hogsmeade, students developed expertise in the smaller, lesser-known routes connecting different parts of the castle. They learned to use service corridors that were nominally restricted to house elves, discovered forgotten staircases hidden behind faded tapestries, and even found ways to access maintenance areas that provided alternate routes between floors. Luna Lovegood, with her unique perspective and willingness to explore unconventional approaches, discovered several passages that had been overlooked by previous generations of students. Her contributions to navigational knowledge included a route through Ravenclaw Tower that avoided all main corridors, a passage from the library to the Great Hall that remained hidden during mealtimes, and a particularly clever route that used a series of connected classrooms to reach the 7th floor without ever entering a main corridor. The 6th year brought even more challenges when security measures were further increased due to concerns about Death Eater infiltration. Several of the main passages to Hogsmeade were sealed or heavily monitored, making clandestine travel to the village much more difficult. However, this also led to the discovery of alternate routes that had been forgotten for decades. During this period, the secret passages also became crucial for a different purpose, allowing loyal teachers to move through the castle undetected by Dolores Umbridge's spies and later by Voldemort's supporters who had infiltrated the staff. Professor McGonagall, in particular, became adept at using the lesser-known routes to coordinate resistance and maintain communication with members of the Order of the Phoenix. The Battle of Hogwarts represented the most intensive use of secret passages in the school's history. When Lord Voldemort and his army of Death Eaters besieged the castle, the passages became lifelines for evacuation, supply routes for defenders, and avenues for strategic attacks. The passage through Ariana Dumbledore's portrait proved particularly crucial during this final battle. It was through this route that members of the Order of the Phoenix managed to enter the castle, bringing much-needed reinforcements. The emotional nature of the passage, infused with Dumbledore's protective magic, seemed to provide extra energy to those who traversed it with pure hearts and courageous intentions. Aberforth Dumbledore, the owner of the Hog's Head and guardian of the entrance to the Hogsmeade side passage, risked his own life repeatedly to keep the route open. Death Eaters had discovered the connection between his tavern and the castle, but ancient wards woven into the very fabric of the passage prevented them from following the reinforcements that kept arriving. During the most intense moments of the battle, when it seemed the defenders might be overwhelmed, Neville Longbottom made a decision that would change the course of history. Using his intimate knowledge of the castle's ever-changing passages, he led a group of students through a route no one else knew about, a tunnel that had opened only that night, directly connecting the Great Hall to the outer grounds where Nagini, the final Horcrux, was being protected. This temporary passage, created by the castle's own magic in response to desperate need, allowed Neville to reach Nagini and destroy her with the sword of Gryffindor. Immediately after the serpent's destruction, the passage sealed itself permanently, as if its sole purpose had been fulfilled. After the battle, as Hogwarts began its long rebuilding process, many of the secret passages were reassessed. Some that had been damaged during the conflict were repaired and restored, while others were permanently sealed if deemed too security vulnerable. However, the spirit of discovery and exploration that has always characterized Hogwarts meant that new passages would continue to be created or discovered by future generations of students. McGonagall, now headmistress, took a different approach to secret passages than her predecessors. Rather than attempting to completely control them or pretend they didn't exist, she recognized that they were an integral part of Hogwarts's nature. She established clear guidelines for which passages were considered safe for student use and which would remain off-limits, but also created a system where responsible students could request access to certain routes for legitimate educational purposes. The Marauder's legacy continued through subsequent generations of student explorers. The Marauder's map, though damaged during the war, was carefully repaired and became part of the permanent collection of the Hogwarts Library, available for consultation by students with a genuine interest in magical cartography and the history of the castle. New students still discovered passages that had escaped even the Marauder's watchful eye. The living nature of Hogwarts meant the castle continued to evolve, creating new routes as needed, and sealing off others that were no longer needed. Each generation of students added its own chapter to the long history of secret passages. However, not all passages were included in the official records. The tradition of keeping some secrets alive continued, with certain routes being passed down only through word of mouth among select groups of students and teachers. This preservation of mystery was seen as essential to maintaining the true spirit of Hogwarts. The secret passages of Hogwarts represented much more than simple architectural conveniences or escape routes. They were silent witnesses to the history of the wizarding world, paths that had known the footsteps of legends, heroes, and even villains. Every stone in their walls had absorbed centuries of magic. Every curve in their tunnels had echoed with the laughter, whispers, and sometimes tears of countless generations. From Godric Gryffindor walking through his own creations to check their defenses, to Harry Potter running through them on his journey to defeat evil, the passages had been both participants and witnesses to the most pivotal moments in magical history. They would continue to serve future generations, adapting and evolving as needed, always ready to reveal new secrets to those brave enough to seek them. And so, as we walk the visible corridors of Hogwarts, we can always remember that there is much more than meets the eye. Behind every wall, under every stone, through every portrait, there may be a door to adventure, discovery, and magic beyond our wildest imagination. Hogwarts' secret passages are not just part of its architecture, they are part of its soul, an eternal reminder that in a world of magic, there are always more mysteries waiting to be discovered by those who dare to seek. This is the true magic of Hogwarts' secret passages, not just their practical utility or architectural ingenuity, but their ability to inspire generations of young witches and wizards to be explorers, adventurers, and discoverers. Each student who encounters a hidden entrance for the first time relives the wonder and excitement the founders themselves must have felt when they first created these magical pathways over 1,000 years ago. And so we reach the end of this extraordinary journey through Hogwarts' best-kept secrets. Each passage we explored today carries with it not only stone and magic, but the hopes, dreams, and courage of all those who dared to discover the impossible. If this video sparked in you the same fascination we felt when unraveling these mysteries, don't forget to like it, share it with other magical explorers, and of course subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our next adventures through the wizarding world. After all, as we learned today, there are always more secrets waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to seek them. See you on the next discovery.